20 seconds.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seirchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's wonderful to see you, those of you who are here in our sanctuary, and welcome to all of you who are joining us from home, wherever you are. We're grateful that you're making Stephen Weiss Temple part of your Shabbat experience. I'm so glad to be joined by our cantorial intern, Andrew Pascal, and just so grateful that we get to have this Shabbat together. A little bit later in our service, Rabbi Josh Noble is going to share a teaching that connects to Veterans Day. And I want to give a shout out to my dad, Dr. Eugene Zweibeck, if you're watching, Dad, who served in our Air Force. And that's where I was born, Air Force brat. So I'm thinking especially of my father today, but I know we have some veterans in the room, and I know we have some folks joining. And if you're a veteran of any of the services, please put your name in the chat, and maybe you could say where you served and what you did, and we'll get to know you a little bit better in that way. But we're grateful to everybody for all the ways that you've served our nation and that you've contributed. We're grateful. We're going to continue with our candle blessing. You can find it on page 2. And for those of you joining at home, please go ahead and light candles right along with us. And lighting tonight, Melanie and Lyle are going to come up. And we're so grateful that you shared Joshua with us this evening, because he's going to be helping with our music this evening as well.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue on page 10, this beautiful setting from a poem that was written by Chaim Nachman Bialik, one of the great poets in the early days of the state of Israel. And this setting is one that's sung often in Israel and really around the world, giving thanks for the gift of Shabbat and that image of Shabbat as a queen who brings light and joy and a sense of dignity and harmony to our lives.
Chachama merosh ha'ilanot mistalka, bo v'netzeh Shabbat likratcha. Hinei yoredet hakdosha brucha. Ve'ima malachim tzeva shalom umenucha. Boi boi hamalcha. Boi boi hakala. Shalom aleichem. Shalom aleichem. Shalom aleichem. Malachei ha-shalom.
On page 13, Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, from Psalm 96, one of the psalms that are part of the Kabbalat Shabbat service, a reminder that we can renew our world, we can renew our Sabbath. Every week we have an opportunity to make it happen anew. And by joining together in community, by raising your voice in song or raising your voice at home, you're helping to bring a new song for this Shabbat.
Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai shir chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
On page 20, L'chadoti, it's an honor to invite Joshua Fisher to come up, a member of our Witty community, our Wise Temple Youth. And Joshua is a senior in high school, and he's been singing and song leading with us for many years now. So it's great to have you here, Joshua. L'chadoti is a prayer that really is about the romance of Shabbat. It's beautiful coming together of this moment in time and a community in love with what it means to come together for rest and for meaning. L'chadoti.
L'chadoti likrat kala penei Shabbat mekabela. L'chadoti likrat kala penei Shabbat mekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibor echad. Hishmiyanu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Leshem u'tiferet v'litzilah. L'chadoti likrat kala בשלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
On page 28, Baruch Hu, our call to worship. You can please remain standing.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared?
Yada lai lai lai, 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 yada lai lai lai.
Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai
HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, le'olam va'ed. Yada lai lai lai, 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 yada lai lai lai. On page 31, a prayer for the evening. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv, Aravim. Page 32. Page 34. Shema Yisrael. Our belief that there's one world, one God, we are all connected. There's a unity to creation.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai And you shall love
And you shall love
Adonai
Adonai
with all your soul
with all your soul
and all your might.
and all your might.
And teach these words
And teach these words
through day and night
through day and night
to all your children.
to all your children.
For it's their right.
It's their right.
And wear them proudly as a sign upon your hand, and as a crown above your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house, and on the gates throughout all time. And you shall love
And you shall love
Adonai
Adonai
with all your soul
with all your soul
and all your
all
might.
your might.
And teach these
And
words
teach these words
day and night
through day and
to
night
all your children.
to all your children.
For it's their right.
It's their right.
And wear them proudly as a sign upon your hand, and as a crown above your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house, and on your gates throughout all time.
Continue on page 39, the kavanah, an intention that can help us experience and lead into Michamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. Michamocha, page 40. Nora, Tehilot, Ose, Fele, Nora, Tehilot, Ose, Fele, Michamocha, Ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha, Nedar HaKodesh, Adonai, Yimloch, Ose, Fele, Adonai, Yimloch, Leolam Va'ed. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. Hashkivenu, page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom, Leshalom, Ve'hamitenu Shomreinu Lechayim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha.
Morning's light, teach us, God, wrong from right. Adonai, Amen, 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 Amen,
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom, Leshalom, Ve'hamitenu Shomreinu Lechayim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Page 44, Vishamru, a reminder that as we observe Shabbat, Shabbat is also taking care of us.
Veshameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam, berit olam. Beini uvein bnei Yisrael, oti oti leolam. Beini uvein bnei Yisrael, oti oti leolam. Veshameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, et HaShabbat, la'asot et HaShabbat ledorotam berit olam, berit olam.
Page 253, we offer Misha Berach LeRefuah. We think of loved ones and friends who are in need of healing, who need our support. And this prayer reminds us to reach out to them and tell them that they are not alone, that there's someone who cares about them and loves them and is praying for their recovery and their strength. It's also a reminder not to take our own health for granted and to take care of ourselves. And it's okay to say Misha Berach for yourself, because we're all in need of healing of spirit and body and soul.
of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Our Amidah prayer begins on page 48, continues to page 62. I want to invite you, as you're able to, please rise. And those of you joining at home, feel free to stand with us as well. We'll give you a few moments for silent prayer. Traditionally, the evening Amidah is done silently, and you can add to the words in the prayer book words of thanksgiving, words of praise, something you're grateful for in the week that has passed, maybe something you're hopeful for in the week to come. Take a few moments for silent meditation.
Seated when you're ready. We're going to do something a little different tonight for Veterans Day. The first half of it you don't have the words for. The second half can be found on page 377. And this first part was written by Irving Berlin. The music was written by Irving Berlin. I think you'll all recognize the words. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
Sometimes you have to make a little room. It was 25 years ago. I know, that sounds so strange to be saying. 25 years ago, in my first week as a freshman at the United States Military Academy, I stood in a foxhole at my very first riflery range, squinting to see the furthest pop-up target, when I suddenly heard a very gravelly voice behind me. "Hey, you need to qualify this time, okay? We're leaving in 15 minutes. I turned my head to find an upperclassman that I'd never met before. And before I could even ask what was going on, he added, "Shabbat services start in an hour and a half. Finish qualifying, hand your rifle to your squad leader, someone will clean it for you, then head to my truck over there, and we'll head off to the barracks to get you cleaned up." Flabbergasted, I qualified successfully before following that upperclassman's instructions to the letter. My entire squad looked on with disbelief as I handed my rifle to my squad leader, walked toward the truck, and took off for the barracks. When I returned from Erev Shabbat services nearly 3 hours later, there sat my squad mates, shining their shoes after they had finished cleaning their rifles and mine. Before I could thank them, everyone gathered round to ask what it was like at Jewish services. So I explained. After I showered, we marched to the chapel, we prayed, we got to use the phone to call home, and then we ate some Chinese food provided by the local Jewish War Veterans chapter. And then we came back to the barracks. By the following week, half of my squad had become Jewish. Now, luckily for me, by the late 20th century, the United States military had adopted an expansive approach to spiritual support. As an institution, the military encourages service members to practice their own faith and supports them by providing access to the worship services, ritual objects, and clergy that they need. This welcoming approach has only blossomed in the years since I served, with the military welcoming service members across economic, racial, ethnic, religious, and gender spectrum, and adopting curricula to educate its leaders about the experiences, the culture, and the history of its service members so that they can better lead by making all their subordinates feel at home in the military. Does it always work? Of course not. Changing a culture takes time, and individual leaders with biases and prejudices can easily thwart the military's aims, especially at the unit level. But the mission remains the same. Do whatever it takes to welcome and embrace any who would serve this great nation. As it turns out, the military takes a very Jewish approach to welcoming the other. This week's Torah portion, Parshat Vayera, begins by telling us that Adonai appeared to Abraham by the trees of Mamre as he sat at the entrance of his tent during the heat of the day. Looking up, he sees 3 individuals standing nearby, and when he notices them, he runs from the entrance of his tent to greet them. The medieval commentator Rashi suggests that Abraham sat outside in the heat of the day, just waiting to see if anyone would pass by so he could invite them in. And when someone finally appears, he rushes to greet them and beckon them into his tent, where he and his wife Sarah welcome them not with a drink of water, not with a snack, but with an entire feast of their best food. Only then do the strangers reveal their true purpose, informing Abraham and Sarah that at long last they will be blessed with a child of their own. It's okay, sometimes I feel the same way. But you can stay, it's good. Our tradition teaches that Abraham and Sarah should serve as our exemplars of the mitzvah of hachnasat orchim, of greeting guests. But there's a prerequisite to hachnasat orchim, illustrated so beautifully in this tale, when Abraham chooses to sit in the heat of the day outside his tent. Because if we truly wish to welcome those we don't know, then we must learn to get outside our comfort zone. Abraham doesn't have to sit outside in the heat. He chooses to leave the comfort of his tent so he can see and welcome others. We have to do the same. Too often we cleave to our physical and ideological confines. And while they offer us comfort, they can prevent us from ever seeing what's outside, from meeting new people, from discovering new backgrounds and cultures, from learning new truths. And so we have to ask ourselves, how often do we actually leave our tents? Later this year, our congregation will join the Greater Zion Church of Los Angeles and Compton. How many of us will make the trip? Early in December, our 7th and 8th graders will take the metro to Skid Row to learn about homelessness in Los Angeles. How many parents will sign their children up? How often do we read about people of other religions, of other genders, of other racial and ethnic backgrounds? How often do we seek them out to learn more about their experiences, to embrace them, and to meet their needs as Abraham does? It's not an easy ask, I know. After all, we build our tents for a reason. They keep us cool when it's warm. They keep us warm when it's cold. They make us feel safe and secure. And there are those who would tell us, with the seductive voice of insularity, that we would be better off to just stay inside, safely tucked away from those outside. But just imagine what would have been if Abraham had done that. Imagine if Abraham chose to sit inside that day. Imagine what we would have lost. No Isaac, no Israel, no Moses or Aaron, no Saul or David, no Hillel or Akiba, no Rashi or Maimonides, no Herzl or Einstein or Heschel or Dylan or Streisand. None of it would happen if he stayed inside the tent. There's a whole world of discovery outside the tent, just waiting for us. And when we get out of our comfort zones, just like Abraham and Sarah, when we rush to embrace the stranger, just like Abraham and Sarah, only then may we be blessed, just like Abraham and Sarah, with something we never dreamed was possible. 2 years after my very first Shabbat service at the West Point Jewish Chapel, I had the privilege to visit the American Military Cemetery in Normandy, France. Scanning across the rows of crosses and 6-pointed stars, it quickly became obvious to me why 2 years earlier I had received such a warm welcome from the Army, even as a young Jewish man from the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. Because in that field in Normandy lie Jews right alongside Christians, generals alongside privates, rich alongside poor, black alongside white. In the cemetery at Normandy, there's no discrimination. There's no prejudice. There's no hatred. There's only sacrifice, born from a shared love of country. And if we wish to honor that sacrifice, if we wish to honor those who wore the uniform of our nation, then we must dedicate ourselves to the right of all Americans, regardless of religion, or of race, or of ethnicity, or of wealth, or of gender, to enjoy the democracy for which our veterans have sacrificed. If we wish to honor those who wore the uniform of this nation, then we must follow the example of Abraham and Sarah and leave our tents behind to embrace all those we may find. May this be the way in which we thank our veterans on this Shabbat and on all the Shabbatot to come. Thank you. Before we continue with our service, I'd like to offer a blessing to our veterans. Those of you watching from home will see the names of those who shared the history of their service with us appearing on our broadcast. If any of you here tonight have served our country, I'd invite you now to join me on the Bima. And if you're joining us online and you served our nation, we ask you to share your name and branch of service so that we might honor you. It's just you and me, huh?
That's it.
Here tonight. Here, hold on. You mind telling everybody your service?
Marvin Pear. I was in the Medical Corps. My first year was in Vietnam. Second year was at Aberdeen Proving Grounds in Maryland.
Thank you for your service. Source of compassion and strength, grant your blessing to those who, moved by the knowledge that all are created equal before you, dedicated their lives to the defense of this nation and its freedoms. Bestow healing upon wounded warriors, peace upon troubled souls, and companionship upon lonely hearts, permitting the legacy of their selflessness to fill their lives with abundant joy and meaning. Teach us to commemorate their enduring commitment to duty, honor, and country with reverence and gratitude among our citizens from generation to generation. May their love for peace and their valor in war inspire us to build a nation in which all may safely drink from the chalice of freedom and repose. Help us to reward their sacrifice with a nation united and dedicated to freedom, to equality, to dignity, and to justice for all. And together we say, Amen. Thank you, Marvin. We'll continue with a prayer for the United States of America. God and God of our ancestors, we ask you to bless this nation and its peoples. Open our arms and our hearts and our minds to one another. Let us never withhold your gift of dignity from our fellow human being. Grant us the determination to preserve the wonders of creation and the steadfastness to safeguard all created in your image. Teach us to honor the guardians of life and liberty, whether they, like Marvin, proudly wore the uniform of our nation or defiantly willed signs of peaceful protest. Rouse us in support of those who struggle against the shackles of bondage everywhere, from our own country to Ukraine to Iran and beyond. Grant us the resolve to spurn the enemies of freedom and justice, whether they brandish the weapons of fear or of greed or of hatred. And may we remember that we can only reap the fruits of virtue, of peace, and of love by sowing the seeds of virtue, of peace, and of love. Then shall justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. Amen. We continue with a prayer for the state of Israel, which can be found on page 259.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzor Yisrael v'goalo, Ba'arech Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu.
O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise and defend, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzor Yisrael v'go'alo. Amen. Selah. Amen. Selah.
There might be any number of reasons which might prompt us to turn on the stream or to come here for Shabbat services. Simply the act of praying together with friends and loved ones, the search for community. Some of us may be remembering loved ones tonight, and some of us might also be celebrating. And so if you're celebrating a moment that's important in your life, we'd love to know about it. Any birthdays tonight? Anniversaries? We got one. What do we got?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Anniversaries over the past week.
Well, I'm going to
retirements?
celebrate. My family ran the New York City Marathon last
National
Sunday,
Co-op.
and we all finished, and we're still walking. So that's pretty good.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. You know what? That's worth celebrating. Not to mention we're here for Shabbat, and that's worth celebrating. So we're actually going to ask you all to rise. We're all going to celebrate with our Kiddush on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lemaseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher litziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat. L'chaim.
Aleinu L'Shabech is on page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye ha'aratzot, velo samanu kimishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
be seated. Page 291, a meditation before Kaddish Tom. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world, and each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life now ended brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. Page 294, Mourner's Kaddish. If you are in a period of Shiva or Shloshim, the first 7 or 30 days of mourning, please rise. And if you're joining from home, feel free to put the name of a loved one in the chat. If this is the first year of mourning the loss of a loved one, please rise. And if this Shabbat is the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise. In solidarity with the mourners, let's all stand and give thanks to God for the gift of life itself. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, b'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei d'kudashah barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high places make peace for us and all Israel and all humanity. Let us say together, amen. Amen. Please be seated. We're going to conclude with those last words of Kaddish Tom, Oseh Shalom. And I want to extend a few words of gratitude to Andrew Pascal, our wonderful cantorial intern, and Joshua Fisher. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Alice Huang and Jeff Stern for your beautiful musicianship, and Rabbi Josh Noble, not just for your service to our nation and your service to our congregation, but for your beautiful Devar Torah this evening. And I want to thank our entire crew who makes these services possible. Without you, it would be hard for folks at home to experience this beautiful Shabbat. So we're grateful to everybody who makes that possible. And most of all, we're grateful to all of you for joining us on this Shabbat, and we hope for many, many Shabbatot to come. And those of you joining from home, if you are in the Los Angeles area, by all means, come on up, 6:15 on Friday nights. You can also join me tomorrow morning in person, 8:45 a.m. for a Spirit of Shabbat weekly Torah study, either right up here on our campus or online. Oseh Shalom, God, please bring more shalom, more wholeness, a greater sense of fulfillment and completeness that we find in this sanctuary tonight, always. Say again?
Sorry, I thought, oh, there we go. Now I'm on. I was going to say, seeing as this is a song of peace, and knowing that those who fought for our country would have only fought for the sake of peace, I wonder if Marvin can join us up
Marvin,
on the
come on up.
As we
Did you bring a guitar, Marvin? An accordion, yes. A drum. Come on up. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.